Alright, welcome to drawing tutorial of how I make my creatures. I don't always make them the same. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably know that. I use different eyes, different noses, different ears. Obviously every character is different, but I have some of these go-to moves that I use. I don't have anything planned out. I just kind of start, and I always start with the eyes, and I'll try to capture things as much as I possibly can and explain them as I'm going through. So this is just regular printer paper. The one thing I will say that I've noticed, that if you lay your hand somewhere and you're drawing in one region and then you go to where your hand was, 9 times out of 10 the ballpoint pen will not it will not write over like where your hand oils were. So be cognizant of that, I guess. It gets frustrating when you're really trying to lay something in right here and your hand was sitting there. So yeah, let's just get into it. So this is about the middle here. I always start with the eyes. Let me see if I can get this lighting a little bit better so there's not so much of a shadow. Probably should have did this beforehand, but you know how I do. I don't like that. Oh, I don't like it. That appears to be pretty decent. The shadow, yeah, I think that'll work. So I always start just with a circle for the eye and try to do two symmetrical. You can see there's like a little gunk on here, so I'm just going to rub that off. And then I do another one. Try to make them symmetrical and relatively cylindrical or spherical, but it doesn't always work out that way. And then typically I'll go in with these like, I don't know, like tired eyes, under bag eye kind of things, and just do a couple of these. And they always get way more dramatic than I want them to be because I just keep adding. And then typically I'll go in and either do like a couple different things, and I'll get into that. If there's likes and there's people that want me to do that, I'll show you like the different eye types and pupil types and under bag eye kind of type things that I do. But this one here is more of like it's like an inspired by Tim Burton thing, and I'm basically just doing these tiny little wispy lines in a counterclockwise fashion around the eye, and then on the other eye basically do the same thing but clockwise. So again, and I mean, none of this is perfect. Again, I don't have like an idea for a character in my mind. I just kind of start with the eyes and then work around. So there you go, you got some creepy little eyes. Sometimes I'll put stuff in them, like a pupil, but right now I'm just going to leave it blank. Next step for me is always the nose. There's many things you can do with the nose. I try to get as detailed as I can with this stuff because I kind of, my goal with this is to get people that don't normally draw or feel like they can't draw, know that I'm not, a trained artist. I just doodle, and then after a while of doodling, I just sort of develop my own style. So I really want everyone to be able to make little creatures and then share them with me on Instagram or on here, or send me a link. And so I'm trying to make everything. It's not like I know how to make faces and stuff like that. It's just I have a method that I kind of use. It is formulaic, I'm not going to lie. So I kind of want this one to be very far down, and I just start with, and there's many ways you can do it, but I usually just start with the outer nostril, and then I'm going to give this guy like a really wide nose, and do the other nostril roughly the same shape and size, and then I'm basically going to come up and create the actual nostril hole, but it doesn't have to be real. I mean, it's kind of subtle the way that I have it going up there. and then I'll just darken that area in. So that's like really your nostril hole. And then this one I'm going to be pretty ridiculous with it. I'm going to come down really far and give this dude like a really pointy nose with like a squared off tip like that. Then I'm basically just going to connect it. And that's it for that part. The next part I do is the bridge of the nose. So you kind of want to follow where his nose would be. So I just kind of like put these little reference dots here, and then I just kind of go up from there. Pretty simple. Basically, I kind of want it to line up, that if you kept going, it would kind of line up like that. I'll just put it there for this one. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, and then again just connect these. You don't always have to do that, but in this one I will. Next, I always kind of do the shading. This part's going to be darker right in here. Same with this one, and then it sort of trails off to being lighter. So I'll just kind of come in here with a light touch, trail off, get a little more, dig in a little bit with the pen, and then, yeah, same thing on this side. Just try to make it, I mean, that looks alright, I don't really care. And then sometimes I'll do one of these so that it looks like you can really see their nose. And then the next part I do is the part basically that bridges your nose to your lips, and it's actually called the philtrum. And I'm doing something you're really not supposed to do as an artist, which is create a tangent, which is basically this line going into the next one. You would either want to have the philtrum start in this line here. See if I can. I don't really want to move the paper too much, but I'll kind of give you an example where, let's just do a quick nose here. Typically, you would either want the philtrum to start wider than the nose, so that this is all in there, or alternatively, I don't like that one. Do sort of one of these noses, right? And then the philtrum basically starts inside this shape. You don't really, even if it's squared off like this one, you would want to start it like that and have it be very narrow. So we'll go back to the actual drawing. And so, yeah, usually you don't want to do that, but sometimes I think that looks kind of cool, because then it creates this shape, this whole space that we're going to do something with in a bit. So once I draw the philtrum, I draw, basically I connect it with like a inverted triangle or a V shape, right? And then this will become the low point of your top lip. At least that's how I do it. So I'm going to basically make a very, dramatic sort of M shape here, like this. So that kind of did the work for me. Alright, and then I usually like to come up with the lip like this, and then give it a very big like droop. Again, everything in this one's going to be pretty dramatic. You could tell it kind of looks German expressionist from that. Again, very dramatic. Now I like to go on to the actual like lip gap part. I just try to mirror the V shape, but softer. Right? I don't like it to be pointy. It's kind of soft, so it's a little more rounded than it is pointy. And then basically I like to connect this corner to this shape and vice versa, and just kind of have the lip gap taper off like that. went a little high on that one, but that's okay. And that's basically your lips. And the next part will be the lip lines, or cracks, whatever you like to call them. On the bottom lip, I usually like to just pick a direction for the first one, so it's going that way. And then I'll do from here to the rest, and kind of keep that same arc, but you can make it a little more pronounced. And I like to start from, I used to do it from the bottom here and do the lip lines up, and they don't all touch the mouth gap, or the lip gap, which is basically the black part here in the middle. But I realized while actually looking at human lips that the lip lines typically start here, and they don't always go. So that one there doesn't touch, and then I'll do another short one, and then maybe a long one that touches, and then kind of finish them up here. Now, this part of this half of the lip is going to be, the lip lines are going to be in a slightly more, they're basically going to go the opposite way. So I kind of like to do one that's almost vertical, and then kind of start the lip lines going the other direction. That doesn't have to be, the straight one doesn't have to be right in the middle, and then radiating from there, but that's how I like to do it. And then the top is, I like to do basically just straight lines radiating from basically the same direction as these, and I just kind of run them straight up and down. Whether that looks like an actual person's lips, you can be the judge, but that's normally how I do my lips. And then at this point, I like to get in the like lip lines and the nose lines for a little dimension, as well as it adds character, and then you can sort of shape your face from there. Like I said, I don't ever really start out with a shape in mind for a head, but it just sort of comes together. So again, I mirrored this Philtrum V here for your top lip. I like to sort of mirror the actual lip with a line a lot straighter. It's not as curved like this, it's a little straighter. And again, it's pretty light. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the pen here. And then basically do the same thing here, almost mirror it here and here for symmetry. And then I kind of like to take from the edge of the nostril here at this point and just kind of come down with this curve here. So then this portion of the face basically looks more sunken in. And that, at that point, this point here, I kind of like to go back in and just lightly shade the Philtrum, because it will be, and I'm using a cross-hatching technique there, which is basically, I'm going to go off camera here back to my like practice space, and you're basically creating shade by doing lines in one direction and then basically trying to crisscross the lines in the other direction, and you get this sort of mesh looking screen window looking thing. But it's good for shading, especially if you're not doing it so dark like that. If you use your lines very subtly. And then if you want it even darker than that, I'll go, up and down with it. And then if I want it even darker, I'll go across this way. And that's basically where you can get your set of values. So you would have this, and then only the first few lines I'm going to do, and then maybe just this section I'll do up and down, and then just the very bottom section I'll do left and right. Now I started pressing pretty hard on the pen there, but as you can see, there's dark, relatively dark, not so dark, and then pretty light. You don't really just want to do one direction like that, because then it looks like there's grill lines on someone's face or whatever, but I think you understand what I'm trying to hint at. So, back to the face. I did that. I don't really worry about where shadows are coming from because I'm not based in reality. I'm just kind of doing a fun video, and I just make these characters for fun. Now you can shade in here somewhere a little bit, which I like to do. Nothing dramatic, and then same here. Again, just to give the face a little more character. Now, this is the point where you kind of have to decide what your head shape is going to be, and a lot of the time I'll just take about where the eyeball is and go down maybe about a quarter, and this is the height I want my top of my ear to be. So I'll just put like I don't know if it's a registration mark or a reference line. And then I do the same thing over here, come down about a quarter, come over, try my best to match about where that is distance wise, and it looks pretty good right now. So I'm going to start the ear, which I like to do several different ears. This one I really want him to have like a very droopy lobe, so I'm actually going to start the lobe by itself. So very droopy, big lobe. And then you basically just do this half heart shape almost, and then just let it meet the lobe here. So the lobe's droopy. I'm actually going to have it come all the way up like that, and that's one ear. So then you can do it all in one shot. That takes a little more time, but for speed's sake, I'm actually going to try it that way. So you do this half heart shape to about where you think your lobe needs to start drooping, and then just do this about like that. It's relatively symmetrical. I'm not super picky about that. And then ears are always fun because you can start that many different ways as well. I like to start with the I'm not exactly sure what this thing is called. I want to say helix. Like the piercing there is the helix, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you can make that however big or small or high or low that you want. That's just kind of where I picked on this one. And then this is actually going to create, and you want to again almost softly. Give me 1 second. Start this lamp back up. Alright, we're good. I don't know if that was just on a sleep timer or if because my computer just went to sleep mode because it's powered by USB. Anyway, you kind of want to softly mirror this shape, but I like to have the actual ear, the line that I'm going to make. A lot of people keep it going. I like it to touch the ear somewhere right around here. So again, you see that little registration reference mark. I just kind of do that, and then I'll do that on this side as well. Have it meet somewhere right up in here. That might not be what an ear looks like. I don't really study anatomy because I just like the way that my little dudes look. And the bottom part's a little more difficult to explain. I like to sort of come down a little bit, and I don't like to have this part touch this line on either one. So again, I'll just sort of come down this way and then start back up, and then I'm basically going to have it meet about right in the middle of this line. So again, little registration mark, just kind of connect the two. I'll do that on this side as well. And then I just sort of color this circle or this area in. I usually shade it pretty heavily and then sort of let it get a little less shaded. Again, like that. And then you can shade this part. I don't always do it, but I will for this video, just to show you how to do it. And again, I'm not doing anything fancy. And this is just like a regular ballpoint pen. It's just a, click ink. It's one of those ones. But I like just like a regular ballpoint pen like these. Every once in a while, you'll notice that your pen is starting to pick up some fuzzies. If you notice that, I usually just wipe it on my finger like that. You could also go off to the side and just do a little scribble just to basically clean the nib of your pen. So, back to the drawing. You kind of have to, again, right now, you kind of have to make a choice of how you want the rest of this dude's face to look. I kind of want it to go right around here, and then not really give him much of a chin, so I can just sort of say that's where, actually, you know what, I'll like that, because I'll give this dude a double chin. So I basically just come from here, again, try not to create a tangent as coming from here would do, or like starting right here. So you kind of start a little bit further up the ear lobe, and then I'll just kind of chunk this one out. And sometimes having a dramatic shape like that makes your character more interesting. So again, I don't want to come down from here and start the ear. I don't want to do it from here. I kind of want to go right about here and then up just a little bit from that. And like the other side, you can see where I kind of square off his jaw, make him a little thick-jawed there. But he'll be kind of an interesting, cool character. And a lot of the characters, I actually give them names and personalities. Alright, it appears that I've lost some footage. So I believe I did the pupils, and sometimes I do them, sometimes I don't. At the point that I was drawing, I didn't want a pupil, so I decided to, or I did want a pupil, so I just kind of thought, oh, that looks cool, so I just put them in there. Got a little wonky on this one, only because there was like junk on my pen, so I just wiped it off on my finger again. And then I decided to create this, I don't know what you would call it. It's not flames, it's just kind of like a melty. And then I explained a bunch of stuff down in the corner here. I'll try to do it again, because I'm not real sure where this cut off. But basically, I just wanted to create these warbly, wavy, everything real soft shapes, and then at the end create that. And then again, to avoid a tangent, you don't want to come up like this, and you don't want to start at the point of it either. So I just kind of split the difference and went from like right here to right here with it, and just kind of did one of those, something similar to that. And that creates this like glass shape where I'm going to put all his brains and stuff. And I just started doing that, so that is where we will pick back up. So as you can see, I have a couple shapes here. I want everything to be very smooth. I want everything to be very rounded. I don't want any sharp zigzag lightning bolt sort of lines. And I know the angle here isn't the greatest. My hand gets in the way of what I'm doing, but I trying to hold the pen. I hold the pen different than most people. I think most people hold the pen like this. I can't really do that, so I have to hold it like this, and unfortunately that kind of gets in the way. Actually, you know what, I'll try it like this, and hopefully that helps out a little bit. But right now I'm just sort of making these random, almost camo-like patterns. And yeah, I don't really want anything. And again, to avoid tangents, you don't want to start from like inside here or inside here, so you kind of want, I want something to end here. So I'll just make a round shape like that. Again, you don't want to connect it here. You don't want like lines to, I don't want to come from right here. I want to come from here. So again, that's just a reference line. And then do the same thing right down here. So that part's done. And I will just kind of mirror that shape and then end up over here. And then again, don't want to create a tangent, so I'll just start from the middle there, and then here I'm going to kind of try my best to avoid hitting this while making it. So I'll start here and then just kind of make a shape like that. Then fill in some of these other gaps here with some more organic looking shapes. And that's pretty much it. I think, I don't think I described it. I think the video cut it off. But I typically make these worms, I call them. And that's like another type of character or creature that I make. And I'll fill the whole page with these worms. That's kind of, these shapes are similar to that, but we'll get into that in another video. It's another like signature creation of mine. So you can leave it like that. I don't mind that. I am going to put a little texture in there, and we'll go to the corner to sort of explain. So we have these organic shapes like this, and I'm just going to, you didn't get to see that. I just made this shape here. So again, that's kind of the things we have up in the brain area. And I'm not going to, basically I don't want to touch the sides. It's like operation. And I'm just going to put in some wavy lines going in all different directions like that. Something similar to that, but I'm going to do it over here. And I'm going to try my best to, again, not really touch the sides. And this is just going to give it sort of a cool, brainy texture, or slime, if you will. Looks a little sludgy. You don't have to fill them in everywhere. I just kind of want to put them sparingly here and there. And again, I really don't want to touch the sides. So I think that's probably pretty good like that. And I don't usually color these in. I usually just do black and white. So that's kind of cool. And next, I'm going to go on to like the eyeball socket. And that kind of already started it here for myself, just to help describe this kind of part here. And I'm just going to basically go over, continuing this, because your eyeball would be in this area. And I have the eyes a little bit sunken in, as you can tell. That's kind of what these, like I said, Tim Burton-esque sort of wispy lines are. And see, things get out of hand sometimes because I just keep going over them and his eyeball gets a lot bigger. So, yeah, I just want it like that. You can give them eyebrows, you cannot. I'm going to choose to do eyebrows this time. And I do eyebrows, I kind of start them here, and I kind of want the first eyebrow hair to go up that way. And then as I start laying them in, I'm going to flatten them out so that they kind of start vertically, and then they sort of taper off pretty quickly to about right here. They'll just start being mostly vertical. And then, again, just kind of fill that part in with the rest of that. So you're basically just taking, like if the pencil or pen, I guess, you start here and then you just sort of just gradually have the eyebrow hairs turning that way. And we'll do the same on the other side, kind of start vertically. And you can kind of, again, I like to do these like little reference points so I kind of know where things are going. And again, I just kind of start, and then pretty quickly I want them to be almost horizontal, like about right here, and then just kind of add them in. And they look alright. Looks a little bit like Robert Pattinson, if that makes any sense. That's the vibe I was getting. So honestly, you can stop like at any point. Like if you just want to do a face, you could be done here. I think to keep the video relatively short, I am going to stop here. But you could also, and I'm just going to quickly breeze over this, I typically will end with doing like a neck. So again, to avoid a tangent, I'm going to sort of start somewhere. You don't want to start here and do his neck, and you don't want to start like right here so that it looks like you're coming off of that. Kind of just want to start somewhere else. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll usually, again, I just sort of flare very softly out this way. And then I'll basically just do a sort of exaggerated sort of U, or if it was turned sideways, a D shape. you know, something along the lines of that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, these are all just sort of fun creatures. And again, like, I'm just using like a regular ballpoint pen and computer paper, because you don't need like special supplies to like make artwork. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff online with those, I think they're Coptic pencils that, or pens or markers that people like to review and try to get cheaper ones and Sharpies, but honestly, a good old-fashioned piece of computer paper and a ballpoint pen is really all you need. And then typically with something like this, I'll shade. So I'm going to I turn it sideways just because it's easier for me to do this than it is for me to go this way. And I basically want to start real dark here. And I'm just going to sort of try to gently mimic his chin shape. So you have that same sort of thing. And that's going to be like my lightest line. And then I'll kind of have the darkest lines here. So I'm pushing a little bit more. And then again, just gradually. This is one where I use spacing to my advantage. So the lines are all going to be basically like this. But they're going to be spaced further and further out the further down they go, to create less shade basically. So the next one will go like right here. And I don't always complete them. Like, it's not a complete solid line. It's just sort of, try to explain it over here, where you're not just going like this. You're sort of just barely, and you kind of do this thing, and you get better at it as you practice. But you just kind of want to make a line more like this. So I'm just kind of like randomly sort of picking it up. So that it's not one continuous line like this. It's just sort of, and even that, I mean, it's mostly connected, but it gives a much softer look than to just go, and then another one, and then make them tighter, which you can do to create shade. It's lighter here and then darker here, but that sort of like lifting off technique. Oh, I keep holding the pen the way I'm so used to holding it. Yeah, just kind of do it like that. So that's kind of what I'm going to do here, and continue just sort of shading in just below the neck thing. And once I start to get a little bit higher up, I'll kind of make them more solid lines, and then just try to blend. And I kind of messed up. Like, as you can see, it looks pretty weird. So I'm just going to go back in and saturate these a little bit more, and then just to make it taper off a little more naturally, as opposed to like a harsh transition. But you can do it that way. It looks cool. Like, sometimes I'll do, again, over to the side for examples, I'll start something like real dark, and then I'll go like a little bit lighter, and then even lighter, and then like almost transparent. And you can obviously see where it goes from one to the other, and it's a little bit of a harsh transition. The best thing, honestly, if you start out like this, and then you just sort of lightly go over the whole thing, yeah, all of the values are going to get darker, but they're also going to blend a little bit better. So it ends up being darker overall, but it's a smoother transition now. It's not like, this to this to this to straight blackout, you know what I mean? And this is a good example where you could do that. I'm just pressing super hard on the pen, but you could also do that technique I told you a little bit with the cross hatching. I mean, that honestly, this is like the basics of what cross hatching is. But instead of doing it in blocks, you do it on the actual thing. A lot of people like to do it with like round objects, because you can just kind of do this, like with an apple or an orange or something, and then you can add lines this way, and then towards the edge where it's a little bit darker that way, and then again, just the very edge. So again, we'll get to that in a separate video, but at this point, I'm going to call this dude done. You can, sign your name or whatever. I have my own, like, signature tag thing. That's not something important. I practiced that a bunch of times. But yeah, this guy's pretty much done, and he looks pretty cool. You can give him a personality or whatever. So I'm just going to box him in, frame him in real quick. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much the guy. And so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you some inspiration to maybe try drawing if you've never drawn before, or if you just kind of doodle and you kind of want to take it to the next level and just start making like little characters. I don't really make like comic book characters and make stories for them. It's just sort of each one is its own, instance of a character. I come up with a character, I come up with a name, and then that's it. He lives and dies on the paper. I don't turn it into a comic book or anything. You could, and that you could take your drawing there. I'm just gonna give him shoulders just a touch. Basically, the frame is if I had like a canvas or something. And then, yeah, so it's gonna bother me if I don't give him like a t-shirt neckline. Again, this is pretty simple. You just sort of mirror the shape, but out. Try to keep the same distance. This one's pretty sloppy. And then I just put lines, and again, almost like sun rays. You wanna start them, and then sort of mirror the pattern of the neckline. So it would be vertical here, but as it goes up the shoulder, it's gonna turn this way, and then same that way. It's gonna turn that way. So I'm just gonna run these in real quick, and they don't have to be perfect. Sometimes I get tighter towards the front, or tighter towards the back, actually would be more correct. But we'll talk about some of the ways to demonstrate like space. There's a bunch of different techniques that I use, but again, value is one, sharp and diminishing details another, but again, that's a little more complicated stuff. This is just basically quickly drawing little guy doodles. And once you do it a bunch of times, like it probably took us like 30 minutes or so to do this, it won't always take you that long. Once you get doing it, I could probably do this guy in, less than 10 minutes. I could do one real quick for you, but yeah, this is kind of it here. So there you go. And then you can, if you want to, you can go in with colored pencils and do this pink for brains, and then give them more of like a bluish greenish skin tone, and make this a little bluer, a little darker blue, and then neck, and then give them a t-shirt, black t-shirt or white t-shirt or whatever, and then background do a different color so that it looks a little more dynamic. But that's if you're, again, later on. This is just kind of doodles. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Hope it gives you the confidence that you need. You don't need any special materials. Just a ballpoint pen, piece of computer paper, and just start doodling. I started doodling when I was, in grade school, just on the back of my tests or the back of my worksheets, and just kind of grew from there. I still doodle all the time, even at work, in between. If I have, 10 seconds in between tasks and I have a piece of paper, I'll just sit there and doodle. Sometimes I'll just do eyes, and I'll sit there and I'll draw a whole sheet of eyes. But again, that's something like almost like the noses that I showed you. I would just do like a bunch of noses on a square, again, about this big. And yeah, that's it. I'm done. I don't know how to end videos, so this is me ending the video. Take it easy, enjoy, and stay safe out there.